Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, the channel that brings you your team every day, the channel that brings you a fan channel driven obviously by fans for you, the fan. Guys, if you want that daily content, smash that sub, ring that notification bell, set it to all so you don't miss out on any of the great content. And a reminder, you can join the channel for as little as 99p. We already have 42 fabulous members. There they all are. Their names in glorious Technicolor on screen. Thank you so much to all those guys for your support. Absolutely phenomenal. 99 pence a month these guys pay to support the channel, helps the channel do so much. So thank you to each and every one of our loyal members. Well, let's get on and talk about Glasgow Rangers. That's why we came here. That's why we're all here at the end of the day. And we want to talk about a player that has been linked quite repeatedly in the last few days, and that is Benie Traore, the Ivorian striker. Obviously, Ivory Coast have a reputation for producing some rather exceptional talents. Obviously, Didier Drogba topping that list. Quality player that he was. I remember his days at Chelsea. He was an absolute beast. Although he did fall over quite easily for such a big guy, didn't he? Just a quick reminder on Benie Traore. Benie Adama Traore. He's only 20 years old. 5'8", winger, centre forward. Again, a hybrid player. One of those players that Michael Beale likes. As you know, this loan deal that he's pushing through for Sima, Abdallah Sima, who again is a winger, a striker, can play in multiple positions there. Currently with Hacken, as we know, Ivory Coast under-23 international. Now, Hacken have been talking about their star striker, who has fired a sensational number of goals this season for Hacken in the Allsvenskan. Here we go. He's made 13 appearances, 12 goals, 2 assists. That's 14 goal contributions in 13 games. Absolutely phenomenal from Benie Traore. So what have Hacken been saying? Well, Hacken have said that it would take a historic bid for them to sell their prize asset. A guy who scores on a regular basis for them. Now, don't worry, we're not talking Erling Haaland type historic bid here. We're not talking 100 million, 80 million, 90 million. We're not talking in those sorts of figures. Harken's record sale was the sale of a guy called Patrick Veilmark to Feyenoord for £3.5 million. So that's their record at this moment in time. So I think they're thinking somewhere north of that figure for £3.5 million. Now, the couple of articles that I've read this morning, were mentioning £6 million for Benie Traore. Now, before anyone goes into a meltdown about the fact it's £6 million, we've got to accept that if we want a top-class striker who's going to score us 20, 25, 30 goals a season, you are going to have to invest a slightly larger amount of money to secure the services of that striker. Strikers, after all, are premium products. They do not come cheap. They are like those premium cars, aren't they? Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. You can't buy an Aston Martin for cheap, can you? You can't go down to your local garage and get an Aston Martin for about 10 grand. It's not going to happen unless it's absolutely knackered and broken down. So you do need to pay a bit of a premium price for strikers, as they do the hardest job in football, which is to put the ball in the back of the net. We know that. It's difficult, isn't it, at the end of the day? So £3.5 million is their record. They're probably looking for around about £6 million for Benie Traore. Now, I think this player is well worth the expenditure. He seems to be a very good quality player. He's made, if we look a bit wider at his stats, 54 appearances in his career. He scored 23 goals. Averages 0.42 goals per game, scores a goal every 97 minutes, and if you widen it to all competitions, a goal every 104 minutes. He is, of course, only 20 years old as well. Now, I know what you're all saying. You're all saying, how does that compare with Cyriel Dessers, the ongoing on-off transfer saga of the summer so far? Also, the sporting director of Hacken has been having his say on this transfer. So hang on for that comment. I'm going to talk about Dessers a little bit and compare them. And then I'm going to share with you that comment, that quote from Eriksson about Traore and selling him and what they intend to do. Just stick around for that. So in terms of Dessers, he's got 111 goals in 277 games, averages 0.4 goals per game. He's 28 years old. I think that obviously you may say, well, that's hardly any different to Traore. Yes, but you've got to remember that Traore is 20 years old. He's just starting out in his career. And as a young player coming up through the ranks, it's not a usual thing that a young player at 17, 18 burst on to the ranks and scores 20, 25 goals a season to begin with. It takes time, and it seems now that Traore is coming to that maturity and that level in his career. The other thing to obviously take into account is that in 10 years, Dessers has had 8 clubs, which seems a little bit mercenary-like. He seems to move on quite quickly from his clubs. He's 28. Obviously, there is no sell-on value to Cyriel Dessers. There is to Benie Traore. The reported fee that Cremonese are asking for Cyriel Dessers is £6.5 million. Now, if you're going to pay 6.5 million for a 28-year-old, why not instead pay 6 million and get a 20-year-old? A 20-year-old who is, in recent times, this is the key thing here, in recent times, more prolific. You look at Dessers last season, 6 goals, 2 assists in Serie A. That's 8 goal contributions, which is pretty poor. You've also got to remember that he's at the very top of his peak of his career. There is only one way from here. So necessarily, is he going to get back to the form of the Feyenoord days or the Genk days? Is he going to get back to that form, or is he going to continue to plateau or even to drop off? That's got to be a question that's got to be asked. Whereas someone like Traore, who is 20 years old, is at the point where you can continue to develop him and mould him into the type of player that you want to be. There is a saying, and I think it applies to footballers as much as it does to dogs: you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's kind of, I think, a little bit where we are with those players that are 28, 29, 30 years old. So for me, Traore is a better player. And you look at the tape, you look at the freshness, you look at the type of players they are. Traore's quicker, he's more skillful. He, I think, could suit the split striker role a lot better that Michael Beale wants to play than Dessers could. And plus, also, the other thing that I'm kind of thinking around the Cyriel Dessers thing is, does he really want to come? If he wanted to push through a move, he could push through a move. We all know, you can all say, well, yeah, it's up to his club, obviously, isn't it, to agree a fee? Yeah, it is. But what you've got to remember is these days, footballers control transfers, not clubs. If a footballer wants to move, he usually gets his move, doesn't he? There is ways around it. They know how to manipulate their club. They know how to manipulate the market. So that's obviously a question we've got to ask. And I know that, we've got the pre-contracts, etc., the 1st of July. Whatever, but Sam Lammers has signed. He had to pay money for him. Equally, you could have had that situation with Dessers already. I think Traore is a better bet for me. Hacken are currently 3rd in the Swedish Super League behind Malmo and the amazingly named Elfsborg, which I think is a fantastic name for a football team. Elfsborg. Anyway, Eriksson, who is the sporting director, Martin Eriksson, I think the guy's name is, sporting director of Hacken, has been having his say on Benie Traore, and this is what he had to say. He says, there is a reasonable chance with us that there will be a sale of Benie in the summer, but it also depends entirely on what offers we receive, and it also has to be something very good for us to consider it. I will not comment on any exact figure for a sale, but it is clear that it would have to be a historic amount for us. For us, it's a win-win situation because we are in a good position where we can get paid well for our players, or we keep them. So if we look at that comment from Eriksson, I think it's clear that they are interested in selling for the right price. But like I said, a historic amount for them is not, like I said, an Erling Haaland type transfer or a Jude Bellingham type transfer. We're looking at, £100 million for a player. Like I said, their record is 3.5. They're looking for around 6, I think, from what I am reading and hearing. And I think, they will ship him on. He is a prize asset. And I think, Hacken are like a number of clubs in those smaller leagues. They know when they have those prize assets, they need to sell them on when they're at the peak of their value so they can get that money in and reinvest in their team to continue their team's success in their domestic leagues. So this is the update. This is what we are up to with the Benie Traore. Now, strikers obviously is the big thing. We do need strikers. There's lots of strikers been linked. Great news yesterday that Lyndon Dykes won't be coming. But, Dessers is obviously an option. But I don't rate the guy in the slightest. I have severe doubts about him as a player. Traore, I think, is a great option. Maggio, I think, is a great option as well. Danilo, the guy from Feyenoord, is another one. Rangers are reportedly in talks. However, that deal could be slightly clouded by the fact that PSV are likely to sign Feyenoord's top striking target, Pepe, who was a player that if Feyenoord would have brought in, they would have been much more willing to sell Danilo, apparently, according to the press this morning. Well, guys, that's the update on Benie Traore. Let's hope that something gets moving in the next couple of days on Rangers signing strikers. Let me know in the comments below which striker you would rather have at the club. Traore, Dessers, Madja. Who's the options for you? I think we need two. I'd love to see Traore and Madja come through the door. I think they would be the best two options out there. Really don't want to see Dessers in a Rangers shirt next season. Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. And as always, we are the people.